Hello and welcome back. I am Darcy Darkness and this is Confessions from the Darkside. How are you all in this wonderful community? And this is Confessions from the Cranky side. The Crow and how the public reacted. And this is for 3 stars this time. I've already covered 1 and 2 and a Hollywood Reporter article. But I have a few articles to read and a lot of reviews to read, and I wanted to share them on the channel because very passionately vocal about this movie and its remake, reboot, reimagining, rehashing, whatever they want to fucking call it. It sucked and we knew it was going to suck. Let's get the disclaimer out of the way. We are full of so much adult content that some of you may think this is unnecessary and some of you may think that this isn't needed. If you are one of those people, then thanks for checking us out, but I will say this only once. If you can't stand the heat, then get the fuck out of my kitchen. Now, for everyone else who likes what we have, then regular scheduled programming will continue. Shall we get started then? Are we ready? And as I said, what we're covering today is 3-star reviews of The Crow, the 2024 shit show. So we already knew it was going to be shit, so let's get into the 3-star reviews, shall we? Right, IMDb. I should have stayed away. Flick lover. When The Crow came out in 1994, I didn't have big expectations. I was not a big fan of James O'Barr's graphic novel. When I saw it, I was completely blown away. To this day, I think it's one of the best comic book films ever made. Of course, the fact that Brandon Lee died in the making of this film gave the film an extra air of sadness. But the film, it said, was visually striking with a great soundtrack, and yes, Brandon Lee was very good as Eric Draven in The Crow. To me, the original film is one of the best films of the 90s. Everything that came after that film has been horrible, really bad. So when it was announced that The Crow would come out in 2024 with Bill Skasgard as the title character, I was cautiously optimistic. It was being reported that this would not be a direct remake, but a team imagining of the character. When I saw the first trailer, I kind of had a feeling this was not going to be a film that I was going to like. Even the trailer seemed off. It seemed that they were going for a completely different take, which I am not against, but it just seemed that it wasn't going to work. Unfortunately, my feeling was correct. I agree. This film is one of those remakes / reimaginings that is only part of the series in name only. It takes such a different approach that it's jarring. The story is basically the same. A revenge story about Eric Draven, us killed along with his girlfriend, Shelley, brought back by a crow to avenge their death, okay? The film takes over 40 minutes to basically show you the relationship of Eric and Shelley. Shelley's played by FK Twigs, or as I call her, who the fuck is FK Twigs? The performances aren't bad, but there almost no chemistry between the actors, none. If the script was going to spend so much time in a love story, they have to make the audience care about these people and make them believe it. The whole film feels like that, just off. As familiar as the story is, it feels so generic that I was not invested at all. It's obvious that the writers and director of this film decided to make this film as different from the 1994 film that it seems that they haven't even watched it. The film is paced very badly also. It never feels like it's getting going. It always feels like you're getting impatient with it, and when it finally got going, well, with a pretty well done action scene that is very R-rated, that is very rated R, I didn't care anymore. This film is not bad as it is forgettable. I will say one positive thing about this film: as below average as it is, it's better than everything that came after the original film. That's not saying much because the films and the TV show that came after the first film were awful. Not horrible, but just uninspired and utterly forgettable film. Grade D. I don't even think that it would be. Lots of people have said that the one with Edward Furlong was better, and I'm just like, really? Oh my god, it's really that bad? This is Ionic Breeze Machine, 3 out of 10. After a 20-year slog through development hell, The Crow reboot provides you another underwhelming entry, which is only marginally better than Prayer. Or is it Wicked Prayer? I'm not sure. Wicked Prayer, Salvation, City of Angels, there's been a few. After her friend Zadie, Isabella Vey, shares a video in which they appear with Vincent Rogue, who's Danny Houston. You'll know him from being a bad guy all the time, and also really cool looking vampire from 30 Days of Night. As he does incriminating actions, Shelley, FK Twigs, attempts to flee to avoid Rogue's henchmen and is arrested by police for possession of drugs. Sent to a rehabilitation facility, there she meets a troubled young man named Eric, and the two form a romance and eventually escape together. When Rogue's men find her, as the two romance continues to build, tragedy eventually strikes when Rogue's henchmen finally track them down and kill both of them. In the afterlife, Eric loses Shelley to the abyss and finds himself in a strange area where a murder of crows and a mysterious man await him. Eric learns that he is dead and that Shelley is condemned to the underworld, but as the level of tragedy and their love was so great, a crow can send him back to the mortal world to set it right and allow him to reclaim his and Shelley's mortal life. Once back on Earth, Eric now possesses regenerative powers and tracks down Rogue and his hench to exact revenge. The Crow is the reboot of the film series of the same name which began in 1994 with the cult classic Brandon Lee film, which was regrettably his final film as he died making it, which producer Edward R. Pressman attempted multiple times to turn into a franchise with mixed results. City of Angels in particular is a tragedy. After the critical derision of the fourth and then final Crow film Wicked Prayer, the series went into hibernation until 2008, when it was announced a Crow reboot would be produced, possibly inspired by the success of Christopher Nolan's reboot of the Batman films. What followed was a revolving door of directors, screenwriters, leading men, production companies, including untying the rights from the disgraced Weinstein brothers, and false start that wouldn't be until 2020 when meaningful movement would begin on the project. Needless to say, many fans were not enthused about the prospect about the redo of the 1994 original, not only because it still holds up, but also because many feel the film is inseparable from Brandon Lee, and the fact that it's tied so heavily to the tragedy of his death. Producers of the film have dismissed these claims, saying it's not a remake, but a reimagining, which is the same fucking thing, and they're going to back to the original comic, which they didn't, but marketing materials that accompanied the approaching release didn't do much to, well, it did confirm our concerns that they were literally rebooting it. After a torturous long journey towards release, The Crow isn't an inferior copy of the 94 original, and is instead a soulless remix of elements of all four Crow movies, crudely stapled together and presented in a package that isn't totally incompetent, unlike Wicked Prayer. From the very first scene shown Eric's barely glimpsed over childhood, it's pretty clear the direction is positioned to be as workman-like as possible, foregoing the stylish direction of the original and instead going styleless. A major red flag is the extensive list of executive producers, which is a telltale sign that this is most likely a movie made by committee and not the product of any unified creative vision. It sounds about right. But have you seen Rupert's shit? He's like that in everything. There's like usually 10 fucking studios involved with his work because no one fucking believes in him. You can tell. The Crow films have always been simple stories that have added the extra something through their style, mood and atmosphere, even in the butchered cut of the City of Angels or the mediocre Salvation. But there's not really any kind of world created in the movie because everything is shot in such a flat and boring manner. The one good scene is where Eric dons the Crow makeup set to the song Boadicea by Enya, and it gives a glimpse at what might have been there, a more unified vision and unencumbered by executive mandates. Outside of that one sequence, however, the mood and the tone never felt right, as Eric is often shown in lighting that's way too bright, and there's no consistent attempt to replicating the gothic mood and atmosphere. The pacing is also pretty terrible, as the filmmakers tried and failed to make Shelley a more fleshed out character by having over half an hour dedicated to setting up her and Eric's romance, which isn't nearly as sexy or charming as the filmmakers seem to think it is, and the two remain little more than constructs of that. To give you an idea of the terrible pacing, it's about 30 or 40 minutes before Eric died, or 40 before he puts on the makeup. Aside from Bill Skasgard's very uncomfortable tattoos, which reek of executive mandate, Skasgard at least has the right face and physical ability to play the Crow, even if his performance is confused to the point his Swedish accent often slip out. I don't recall seeing him having this issue in It or Hemlock Grove, for example. Danny Huston's Vincent Rogue is another retreated of Huston's being a default Renta villain, and he's basically a less interesting version of Judah Earl, whose supernatural abilities are a calculated attempt at franchise building. It makes it feel less The Crow and more bargain bin Faust or Spawn, but by far the biggest drag on the film is FK Twigs, who's absolutely abysmal as Shelley. You know, people had issues with Celica Shyamalan's performance in Trap. I personally didn't mind her, but I challenge those people to see FK Twig's performance here and then look again. While FK Twig's photographs nicely, her delivery is so limp and stiff that she never feels like anything coming from her mouth is genuine. Last but not least is the action, which is not only lacking in any sort of style, but but is sometimes tonally jarring, including one sequence at the Opera House that made my jaw drop how ill-judged ironic and comedic elements were included, but the biggest insult comes at the anticlimax, which I kid you not is confined mostly to a mud puddle. Wow. I almost feel the need to apologise to The Crow Wicked Prayer, because as bad as that film was, I still remember its stupidity and incompetence. The Crow 2024 is too competent to be interesting, and it's also too stupid and unambitious to do anything of note. I'm kind of reminded of that Hellboy reboot that Neil Marshall made in 2019 that also suffered executive interference, but even that film had an okay performance from David Harbour, which it did. Writing had this feeling before the first camera started rolling, SMB lights. I went into this movie with an open mind, and I told myself not to compare it to the original and to understand that it's going to be its own movie and give it a chance as its own thing. Well, it turns out that is definitely its own thing, and that thing is a major fail. They made Eric, the main character, a junkie-like character, overdid the modernisation with the face tattoos and the druggy-like vibes, and totally loses the connection of the characters and viewers. The writing, the dialogue and the directing was bad, and it's a shame because you can tell that the actors really cared about this movie and took it seriously, but it's nowhere near enough to make this movie worth watching. This is one that I truly wish I would have waited until it was streaming to find out whether I was going to like it or not. If they were just dead set on making another Crow, they would have been better off handing it over to Netflix or Apple TV or even the Hallmark channel. Honestly, that's what the movie felt like. It felt like Hallmark had made an action film. Disappointed, Kelly Tang 5381. The original wasn't perfect, though I'm sure the darker tone gave some inspiration to subsequent films like Nolan's Batman. The first problem in this one is that the plot is set up to resemble the Joker. Whether it's the flashback of his infected mother as a child, the later scenes of two getting to know each other in a psychiatric hospital and jumping into a river, or even the makeup that's applied to his eyes and melts away. I'll concede that maybe they have similarities, but the original comics are still quite different. Honestly, the second question, I don't understand why he can take revenge for a girl. In the original version, the heroine was already his fiancée, and being killed at the sweetest moment was undoubtedly etched in stone. The time here from the two of them meeting, running away, drinking, doing drugs, having sex and hanging out with their friends seems to be less than a month, which isn't even clear the identification of the romance or the relationship in a dating setting. And I know that the line the heroine asks him if he's ever seriously loved someone, but that's more than like a sweet word than a real thing in the context of that scene. One last problem with the pacing: too much build up leading up to the ending showdown with the villain being too bland. Traditionally, the battle with the boss is always the grandest and the most exciting in the superhero genre. Although it's very boilerplate, but it's also the most conservative way to keep the audience excited to get out of the theatre, isn't it? Cringe and should be called The Crows instead of The Crow. Edison, Lisa. It was not a rip-off, but my pet peeve was Shelley's pouty lips and constant bedroom eyes. No charisma. Eric just took a lot of beating and didn't develop some skills just before the movie ended. It was so annoying. Their intimate scene had no chemistry despite trying, and it wasn't romantic. It was like some sort of Harley Quinn and Joker thing. It was very predictive at times, and the only thing that I enjoyed was a few seconds of how he killed a couple of guys. I giggled. Otherwise, it was not anything like the original. The hurt, the sorrow and the love Brandon felt he delivered so heartfelt in depth. This felt very toxic and not pure and kind, raw and awesome. Revenge like Brandon's performance. Also, there wasn't one Crow, there was just a bunch of them. Like a Hitchcock. I missed that connection with The Crow. What was the point? Was it called The Crows? Well, they tried and failed. Unnecessary and pointless. This is Smith C06908. Just saw it. Well, they tried and failed. In the end, it's just a bloody graphic, violent horror flick. No real thrills or powerful moments you can connect with. No real gothic feel at all. Horrible casting choices. Bill is stiff in this, and Twigs is the standard so-called love interest with no personality. She's just there because the script says so. Flat dialogue that we don't care about. Why even call this crap The Crow? They should just call it The Pigeon. Lol. The movie is a weak attempt at a Crow story. It was unnecessary, and what the actual fuck was up with that music and lame characters? Was this a Guy Ritchie flick? Now, Guy Ritchie actually, again, I've said this before, he's good at what he does, but when he does other things with other people, he doesn't tend to, I think, work well with others, but he's good at what he does. The Ministry of Ungenitally Warfare, they actually did test screenings and it failed to reach the audience, so they had to kind of Guy Ritchie it, and they changed the music and stuff like that. And even though the music technically wasn't out, like they had Queen and stuff like that in the movie, the music went along with the movie, and even though it was set in the past and not when that music would actually be out, but it still worked well. So Guy Ritchie can do good things, but he just has a cock look about him. Dull, disappointing mess. Banzuzo reviews. The Crow 2024 is a haphazard put together mess that just doesn't have the style and the class of the original film. The whole film feels incoherent and lacks any real momentum. Some stilted acting, even though Bill Skasgard tries his best, and the writing doesn't help. That being said, it does have a couple of great action sequences, especially in the Opera House scene, so that's something. Overall, the movie defines mediocrity, maybe not even that. If you really want to watch a Bill Skasgard action movie, check out the criminally underrated Boy Kills World. That movie was a blast and a half. This one, though, is just disappointing mess. Just a disappointing mess, and not even the fun kind. And also, Boy Kills World, he's completely silent, and apparently his performance was much better in that movie where he said nothing compared to what he did in The Crow. 3 out of 10, just bad. Gets good, but then it's over. Stephen C.S. movies. Is Lionsgate okay? No, they're not. They keep doing remakes and reboots even though people don't fucking want them because they've got no fucking originality and no good people around the table writing fucking stories and creating new characters and actually making us want to go to the fucking cinema. So yeah, Lionsgate's not been okay for a long time, and they won't be for a hell of a fucking long time because they've got so many reimaginings, rehashes coming fucking out and also being made as we speak. After the 2 recent bombs, something must be off over there. First, they released Borderlands, which is simply so bad and unfaithful to the video game it's based on, with a cast that is designed to drag people in to see it. Now they released The Crow, not really a remake of 1994's The Crow. It tells the story of Eric, Bill Skasgard and Shelley, FK Twigs, who meet in rehab and instantly fall head over heels in love for each other. After breaking out, a demon from Shelley's past, an actual demon by the way, because it's a supernatural entity that's been around for centuries apparently, has nothing to do with the fucking Crow, but anyway. After breaking out, a demon from Shelley's past rears its ugly head, killing them both. Eric comes back to life, hell bent on revenge for basically a one-night stand. Oh, and now he can't be killed because of his unshakable love for Shelley after like 48 hours. I went into this movie with my expectations lower than a bar at a Limbo championship. The trailer worried me. Having just recently seen the original, I was prepared. The Crow is a bad movie, but not as bad as some critics are making it out to be. I think the harshest critics are the biggest fans of the original, which is pretty good in my opinion. The heart of the movie is the love story, and I didn't see any chemistry or love, even though they spent frickin' 48 minutes trying to convince us otherwise. I had no investment in anything I was seeing. Everything just felt bland. There is one scene that I loved, which had a very gnarly violence scene with an opera in the background. If only it didn't take so long to get good. Also, I heard the ending. They went through 1 or 2. No, they didn't. They watched about 30. They watched about fucking 30. And then they picked one that Bill didn't like, apparently, which sounds about right for Rupert Sanders, since he is just an absolutely... He doesn't listen to anybody, it seems. He surrounds himself with yes people, so if he says that this is blue and it's black, you have to say that it's blue because he said so. That's the kind of guy I kind of see him as. Bill didn't want that ending. Spoiler alert, it's apparently she comes back, and again, that's not how the story is, but anyway. I do not hate The Crow only because I don't care enough about the property. If I was a fan, I'd be pissed. I'm glad audiences are starting to value their time and not supporting crap. Yay. The Crow doesn't fly. Tupper, yay. Horrible remake. I gave it 3 stars for Skasgard's performance. I thought he did a good job of a pure but tortured soul. That's not what I'm hearing. It's basically everyone's souls are being tortured watching him. Nothing else redeeming in this movie. The director did a very poor job. He did worse than a poor job. He was just a dick. He was a dick. He is a dick. He chose to concentrate on artsy film takes of graphic violence that left no room for the essence of the storyline. It's okay to have those kind of artsy-fartsy things in films if you actually know how to execute a story and execute the mood and the vibe of the movie and the story and the actors and the characters. If you can actually do all of that, then I can understand why you would put these sort of artsy-fartsy angles and stuff. But if you can't fucking do it, don't try and be M. Night if you can't, okay? Just fucking do what you do best, which is apparently make really shitty movies, but hey, you're the best at Rupert Sanders, you should win the award for being the best at making shite movies, because you really succeed at making the best shitty movies. The director was way in love with himself to get the story translated to the screen. The original movie with Brandon Lee was before its time. It captured the story of pure love of good souls who are so wrongly violated that it needed to be avenged. Save your money and watch the original, which stands up to the trial of time, just like all good movies. Is movie making really this hard? Now, we ask that question every time we do a podcast. Jacob Ark. The acting, let's start there. Both main characters were completely forgettable. Not a thing I liked about them. Just a couple of junkies partying in every scene that barely knew each other. Let's just stop there. The two main characters are not only unlikable, but also their acting was so unbelievable. Is it really that hard to create characters that you at least kind of care about? It seems like a trend in Hollywood has completely abandoned in search of new ideas. The fight scenes were so. Yeah, they were gory and brutal, but I feel like they could have easily stepped up the sequence and not made it so bland. Yeah, we get it. You're bulletproof. And again, Rupert Sanders was going for John Wick. He really was. He just wanted violence, and he thought that that's what I felt. Like, he thought that the main part of the story is the violence and the gore and the killing, when it actually wasn't. It was righting a wrong of something that shouldn't have happened, but it did, and things like that do happen, and that's what they were doing. He did not capture this in this movie, and any movie for that matter, what he's done. So 3-star reviews continuing. It should have been The Crow, Smud96. This movie was a complete breakaway from the graphic novel and original movie. They should have moved forward with the movie as a new standalone production unrelated to The Crow, I agree. And maybe it could have been something, but as it stands, it was weak and grossly underwhelming. So many things could have been done better: cinematography, soundtrack, backstory, etc. The lovers succeed more as a desperate codependent strangers sharing in their lack of personal growth than two humans deeply in love. The villain doesn't come across as basically being a villain like he is supposed to be, leading to an overall story lacking in drive and direction. Mike Cart 1. If you love the original, you will hate this one. It really comes down to what you prefer. If you love the original, the cinematography, the acting, the plot, the overall movie, and if you even have it on DVD, or if it's in your top list of all time, you will absolutely hate this movie. In terms of what is more accurate to the comics is debatable. And if that is all that counts, then dozens of other movies that match the original book and comic will have far better ratings. So what is the issue with this movie? What is the issue with the movie? First, what in the world with the background story? The background took too long and it didn't add a whole lot in respecting either main character. In the original, these were characters we cared for that were murdered and wronged badly. In this one, not so much. The second, the villain is way different and makes zero sense. Third, the crow doesn't seem to come into play at all except to fly around the sky in various scenes, probably from CGI and not even actual bird. Fourth, the storyline and plot are completely confusing. How did they mess the movie up so bad? In terms of positive, Bill Posley is too good for this type of movie. Without him, this movie would have gone straight to streaming. Watch only if you got nothing else to do. And again, he's got a good performance in silence apparently. I do like Bill, and I hate the fact that it sounds like I'm coming from every time, but he can only do so much. He's an actor and he's got a job to do, and if the story is shit, and if the direction is shit, and he basically is being directed into doing something that he may or may not have realised that the story is about, then his reaction to the actual ending of the movie, where he wasn't happy with any of the 20 odd, that's what he said, Rupert Sanders, 20 odd endings. How many fucking endings? It sounds like you've had more endings than actual movie. The new norm of Hollywood seems to be slow and boring for as long as possible, throw everything at you in the end. Michael Madsen, 1981. The Crow is about Eric and Shelley, who falls madly in love, only to be killed violently by a mad thug. Eric comes back with supernatural powers to wrong the right. Beautiful, cinematic, well-written, good story. Wait, that's the 1994 version here. The Crow 2024 is a film about Eric and Shelley, who falls madly in love in a mental institution. It's actually not. It's a drug rehabilitation facility that's court-ordered. They escape only to be killed violently by some thugs working for a man who sold his soul to the devil over a recorded video. Eric comes back with powers of a god so he can wrong the right and kill the man who shouldn't be walking on earth. It has nothing to do with his love for Sheila, it says instead of Shelley, or revenge at the end. That's just an excuse to get the story moving. The movie's runtime is roughly 100 minutes, feels more like 120 plus. The first hour is slow, pointless and boring. The only thing that makes up for the story is the movie's R rating. There are some gruesome scenes, opera scene, and they are great. Other than that, there's nothing that makes you connect or feel with the characters. Throughout the movie, it feels like many times there have been scenes either cut out or not recorded at all. Some characters are just even there for no reason, and some scenes have no connection to each other. After the movie's ending, I can't remember a single name of the villains, except Eric and Shelley, only because I loved the first movie. I really like Bill Skasgard, but he was the right cast for this movie. Also, this should not have been a reboot with the same character. It should have been a continuation or a complete separate story, since that is what it feels like anyway. I'm going to end with this. See it once at least, but wait for streaming services to pick it up. 3 out of 10 again. Remakes are fine if they're good. I love the original. I actually didn't the first time I saw it. I liked it and it grew on me over the years and the decades until I can barely remember not loving it. I watched the sequels and the series and they were varying levels of okay. You're being incredibly kind. There's 2 reasons this is terrible. There is a reason to remake. One being that you could make it more accurate to the graphic novel. They didn't. They actually made it even further from the source material, so what's the point? There isn't one crow. The comic series has many crows, so they could have simply made this a new Crow movie or used one of the many other crows, since they used one of the very obviously for inspiration. This isn't Draven, that isn't Shelley, and this movie is basically garbage on several fronts, and that's the real tragedy of this myth. Travesty to a legacy, Rocky_53. They claimed they wanted to honour Brandon's legacy and do the film justice, but instead turned the characters into villains and added unnecessary satanic imagery and themes throughout. Absolutely disappointed after all these years of waiting for an updated and hopefully good modern version. Instead just got 2 hours of punch, good action and gore. That's not what this fan was mainly concerned with. Sad. They should have left it alone. If this is all they were going to do, nearly walked out early on as the setup for the narrative. Look, took eons to get rolling. The fact they absolutely shat on the main character is unforgivable. If you want to enjoy The Crow, pop in your Brandon Lee original. Skasgard's fine, but the script and the aforementioned satanic rubbish was mainly what ruined what could have been an excellent nod to the original film. Save your money and get a root canal. Wow. Diva Rowley. Yikes. I'll refrain from spoilers in case you actually want to see this. But if you're a fan of the original Crow by Alex Proyas or a fan of the comics, you will hate this movie, even if you're looking for a decent action movie or a solid plot. All that falls out the window with this film. I will try to summarise as best as I can. They completely changed the original plot. Practically all of what of the original movie is, and all of it. This film is all that falls out the window with this film. I will try to summarise as best as I can. They completely changed the original plot, practically all of it that's in the original movie or the comics, and zoinked into oblivion. This film is taking from the people who wrote really good stories and they're thinking, hey, that we can do it but our way and better. Well, actually you can't. Your way is off. The first 30 minutes is not only random, confusing and useless, but it tries to get us to like our main couple as some head over heels deeply in love romantic saga, when actually it's 2 drug addicts who escape rehab together to immediately hook up and do more drugs after knowing each other a few days. For it almost seems 10 minutes of the film we get to enjoy some spectacle of random making out, sex, drugs and corny high school level cringe dialogue thrown in. They're talking about how they love each other after a week together. What's shown in love or romance? It's infatuation that doesn't make us connect with these characters. The plot continues to muddle along to no man's land, to the point where if you watch the original or the comic, you're just waiting for them to get killed, so at least you can watch some bloody revenge action. Nope. When you saw the trailer, it is basically what you get. So as I said, all those trailers for nothing. About 20 minutes of the movie is action, and I must admit those sequences are actually good and really violent. If they could have done more of that, maybe that could have been around a 5. Again, the movie's not about that, so why would you give it 5 out of 10? They tried to give the Crow a villain with some powers of his own, I'll leave it at that, but none of this is explained, so it feels forced and random. They could have flushed it out, but they wanted to spend the first 40 minutes focusing on this cringy hookup session, trying to convince us how deeply in love these two are. Look at them laughing half naked smoking pot. Aren't they so in love? Sure, if I was a 15-year-old girl I'd think that. There is some good cinematography, but it's ruined by the Jared Leto Joker-esque crow they give us. And just makes you disappointed he couldn't be depicted as his original comic book look or the 1994 film version. There is a fight sequence at the end which saves the movie from being a 2 out of 10. It's brutal, violent, cinematic, and really executed, but the rest of the film is not. Despite some of the bad guys walking into melee range after shooting a guy who clearly isn't dying, but the scene's so cool and let it slide with Burning Point. Of course, if you're going to have a bad or mediocre plot, it can be saved by great cinematography and fantastic fight scenes. Now this film succeeds at this, but only does it for about 20 minutes. The problem is they didn't think this plot was bad. Well, that's not the only problem, but you know what I mean. I had a feeling the film would be mediocre from the trailer, but I went in with an open mind, hoping to be happily surprised. This wasn't even mediocre, it was just a bad film. Abashed the devil stood and felt how awful this remake is, only at J-Mart. After the disappointing trailer, I lost any hope that they were going to do anything special here. However, I was hoping that because my expectations were so low, and I was certain that it would in no way even come close to being as great as the 1994 original is, I still held out hope that it would be entertaining in some form. Even bad movies can have their charms. I agree. Unfortunately, this turned out to be way off base. The only thing this had going for it was violence, a few action scenes. However, if you've seen the trailer, you've already seen almost all the movie has to offer. The rest was toothless, boring, and an insult to the movie. The original. Eric Draven was perfectly developed in the original. Every scene with Brandon greatly captured the sadness, the anger, and the determination of Draven. How did they showcase more of Eric and Shelley's relationship in this one, yet make it less interesting and believable? The original made you feel Eric's determination to avenge Shelley. It captured his pain, his anger so well, which made it all the more satisfying as he fought his way to top dollar. This movie inspires no enthusiasm from Draven's plight. All of the changes they made were just silly. I heard early reviews calling it unwatchable. I would not say that is an accurate assessment of this version. More like forgettable and totally uninspired, which is a shame because they could have stuck closer to the source material, which was supposedly the original plan. It would have been different enough to be enjoyed separately from the original, without sacrificing the quality of the story. There are no redeeming qualities in this version. I was hoping to walk away being able to say I did like something about it, but everything they tried to do to connect it with the audience or make you feel like you're a passenger with Draven on his journey fell flat. I wouldn't even use the word cheesy or over the top as I would describe the other attempts to make an enjoyable Crow adaptation. The words bland and lackluster come to mind when trying to find a way to describe this version. However, this one was absolutely poorly. I keep hearing that. Bill looks handsome. The end. ... The end. Industry _ professional. I am writing this review in service to humanity to save money on a movie ticket. Ha ha ha. First, if all I very rarely give movies anything less than a 6, it is my belief that all filmmakers deserve credit for their endeavours. After all, 6 is still a failing grade, but this movie just wow. Here are the positives. Bill Skasgard is incredibly good looking. Is he? Everybody has their own taste. He's not mine. The tattoo artist killed it. Such amazing body art. If it's the tattoos on Bill Skarsgård's body, no. The people who made the trailer are geniuses. Really? They got me into theatre. Props to them. It pains me to say the script was abysmal. I don't mind when a comic book based script is shallow, however the dialogue fell completely flat. I am giving this movie a 3 because I stayed until the end of the first act before walking out. That was the 3 out of 10s, and the 3 out of 10s, a lot of them have described the cinematography, and I get it. They try to focus on something positive because they don't want to be a dick when they write the review. But I think everybody agrees the way they portrayed Eric and Shelley, their love story, it was laughable. Their characters and how they portrayed the characters to bring them to life was abysmal, apparently disappointing and forgettable. No one could actually really remember. The action scenes were the only scenes that saved the movie, yet there was only 2 of them and they showed a chunk of it in the trailer. So basically the trailer was your viewing basically, and they had multiple trailers, multiple stills, and no wonder the cast looked so fucking bored during press and promo because they knew the movie was going to fucking tank because it's shit. They knew that the ending was not going to fit well, and they Bill obviously knew when the Rupert Sanders came out and attacked people and wasn't particularly nice. He's not even particularly nice to anybody now. He's now blaming pretty much because you're coming after his creative vision. His creative vision is shit. The original guy who actually did the adaptation for this movie wanted nothing to fucking do with it because Rupert Sanders had changed it so much. So you can imagine all the fucking work to try and adapt the actual graphic novel to make a 21st century version of a movie that was out 30 years ago that still is incredibly popular and people will still watch it. And people would pick to watch it if it was on TV. That's the thing. It's one of those movies that even if you own it, if it was on the TV, you would watch it. Rupert Sanders ruins almost everything that he touches. Please don't give him any more fucking projects. Until you actually get someone else that will actually sit beside him and not let him have creative control over a project because he obviously can't or doesn't understand passion, love, hurt, suffering, grief. I don't think you know. I'm autistic and I struggle with emotion, and when you are trying to read people's facial expressions, apparently they both come across as incredibly constipated and they really need to go to a toilet. Like this movie is literally a toilet. Do you agree with this? Do you think I'm being too hard on Bill? Do you think that I should shut the fuck up and just go see the film? I'm probably not going to go see the film because I would rather not catch anything. As people know, I have a compromised immune system, so even before all this shit, I still had to be careful. Would I have went to see this even with having a Cineworld membership? No. I wouldn't have subjected myself to even see it, even though you'd pay a monthly subscription. I would have went to see Blink twice, like I said. Would have chose to go see another film again, and at this moment in time, was it Deadpool and Wolverine actually dropped from the first, like, #1 box office, and when The Crow came out, it went back to #1, which I found incredibly funny that people literally probably walked out the film and maybe if they got a refund they went to see Deadpool or Wolverine, or people just ended up going to the cinema to see that instead. It's a horrible time. Lionsgate needs to get their fingers out their arse and stop remaking, rebooting, reimagining, and stop giving projects to Rupert Sanders. Don't trust him. You learned that's a $50 million movie apparently, and again to make it, but I don't know how much was spent on promo because it was literally a bombardment constantly and everybody's sick of fucking seeing the trailer. Between that and the Borderlands trailer, everybody's been seeing it. It is literally everywhere. So I don't know what they spent on the actual promotion of the movie to make it basically sellable for people to go. It's making me even more sad to find out that The Crow, who's actually supposed to be like the guardian between worlds and on our world and a connection to Eric, actually isn't really in the film, and so it's kind of why the fuck's called The Crow, and people are saying there's loads of crows that literally are, and it's very, when I heard about that kind of scene that I'm talking about where all the crows are all surrounding him, it gave me Morbius with the bat. So it did. It gave me total Morbius vibe, and I haven't even seen it yet, and I've seen that part of the trailer, and that's what it kind of reminds me of, when Morbius is like coming out of where he is and he doesn't know, you know, what the fuck's going on, but he does because he's connected to these bats and these animals. That's pretty much what I felt like when I seen this part of when you see Eric Draven surrounded by them, like a murder of crows. People have said it's very Hitchcock, like, or he's tried to be Hitchcock, and again, can't be Hitchcock either. Hitchcock was Hitchcock. And I'm sorry, we're not going to be talking about the great works of Rupert fucking Sanders in 10, 20, 30, even 40 years time. We're going to be talking about his failures and how not to do a reboot and how not to film a movie and how not to direct a movie and how not to adapt great stories that won and still are awesome, but his stories are lacking a lot of things, and people are saying it's emotion and passion, and he thinks he can just replace everything with action. Again, Crow movie was dark. They've not pulled that off. They've tried to make it gothic and failed, and people are saying that Bill Skasgard is whiny and closer to an emo than kind of gothic industrial Eric that you saw with Brandon Lee in the original 1994 movie. So that's what we always have to think about, is the fact that they've tried to reboot it so many times. You think that they would fucking learn that it's a standalone movie. Going to do a reboot, you need to do a full reboot and do it from the actual comic. Don't go off page. If you want to do James O'Barr's graphic novel justice, fucking remake that. Don't make it like the original Crow, the cult classic the cult classic for a generation in the 90s for alternative kids and alternative adults. Do something different. Think outside the box, and maybe just I have the graphic novel, and there is plenty of fucking material in there that you could easily have put in that movie, and he chose not to take the adaptation that was already done from the graphic novel from that writer and totally butcher his work. So I can bitch about it all day long and for hours and get incredibly passionate, as I say, not mental, passionate about The Crow, because being an alternative person, individual, I feel like we've all been wrong by this movie and the promotion of this movie. And Rupert Sanders, he just has to pay. He has to suck it up and realise that you suck, you fucked over people, and you're definitely not getting our money. My advice is, don't go see The Crow, watch the original. If you want to watch it, wait till it's free to stream, but don't the fucking money. Please, save your money. There's plenty of movies coming out in the next few weeks that are way better and have a better story. That was Confessions from the Cranky Side, 3-star review and a wee bit of a rant. I am Lady Darcy Darkness, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side, bringing you cranky news from the Crow reboot. If you like content like this, you can go check us out on our social media platforms, which is Twitter, which is Facebook, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Amazon Music, and Instagram. Oh, and YouTube. If you want to get to know us as individuals, I am, as I said, Lady Darcy Darkness, and my channel is called Behind the Mash Reviews, and the spelling is up on screen right now. Yes, it's difficult, it's a pain in the ass, I love it, get used to it, I am not changing it. And I have Instagram, YouTube, and a Twitch. Lunar has his Lunar X Rising, and he has a Twitch, an Instagram, and a YouTube. If you want to contact or reach out to us at any point, you can go to our confessionsfromthedarkside@gmail.com and email us there. If you want to get to know us as individuals, then you can email me at behindthemashReviews@gmail.com, and Lunar is lunarxrising@gmail.com. And as I said, that was Confessions from the Cranky Side, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side, and I am Lady Darcy Darkness. See you in the next one. Later.